Hello and welcome to the presentation for the Postgraduate Social Work Qualifying Programme at Bournemouth University. My name is Richard Williams. I'm a registered social worker, proud to be a registered social worker, and actually proud to be associated with what I consider to be probably the best team of people I've worked with. And I think that's really important, and I'm clear and honest about that at the start. I'm going to talk through various aspects of the qualifying programme and some of its context. And firstly, let's have a look at it's part of a teaching partnership, first in the Southwest, with a grant from the Department for Education. We're a partnership which includes three of our local authorities, the statutory partners, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Local Authority, Wiltshire and Dorset. And what that does, it gives us a boost to the collaboration between us. So that means that we spend more time working out in the local authorities, and the local authorities spend a lot of time coming in and collaborating with the teaching. So by the semester one last year, we had something like 40 practitioners coming in and supporting the teaching. So it brings that live currency to it, and that link between academia and practice is strengthened. And that's a really important aspect of what we consider to be a high priority. And it's true to say that my colleagues and I, most of us are research active, and we have a very strong focus on the learning from the lived experience, and that's really important because we're part of a research centre called Seldom Heard Voices. And this is just an example. My colleague, Dr. Mel Hughes, has authored this particular book. And it's a number of chapters, each of which is authored by a service user or a carer. So it's and each chapter contains someone like someone who had their children taken into care, someone who was approved as a foster parent, someone who was sectioned under the Mental Health Act. So emotionally challenging experiences that people have had. And each of those authors has been paired with a social worker, either a social work academic or a social worker in practice, to link into the legal context of their experience. So when a social worker came around and asked this and this and this, in the text box, the social worker who's linked with the author of the chapter can talk about what the legislation was and what the duties were of the social worker at that time and what the powers were. So it's very much around learning from the lived experience, and that's a key function, a key aspect of the ethos of the programme. I like this. This is my cartoon, and there's something about the balance between learning and practice. So, as all courses across the country, it's been at least 170 days in a practice setting. I'll talk about it a little bit in more detail as we go through the presentation. But the core values that underpin everything in terms of valuing diversity and anti-oppressive practice. And that's linked to the teaching and the learning. So, anti-oppressive practice. So, I think it's important that we understand that we can reflect upon the power that we present. So while I may not, if I'm a social worker and I'm going to visit, I'm going to knock on somebody's door, I may not feel powerful, I may feel nervous, but the person who's answering the door may experience me or may anticipate me as a very powerful person who can intervene in their lives in what they might consider a negative manner. But it's that understanding that and that how we practice and how we engage with people to acknowledge the other people's experience. And critical thinking is fundamental, so I'll let you have a look at that cartoon. I really quite like that one. So it's about research-informed practice. As I say, my colleagues are research active and covering a number of areas, a wide range of areas from around suicide, child protection, scamming older people who are vulnerable to digital fraud. Just a wide range of areas of practice that we're research active in. And then we come to the programme itself, and I'll go through this semester by semester. And so semester one is is a kind of an academic input, and then in the first year. So looking at some of the core learning for social work practice. So law and social policy, so understanding some of the key legislation and how it applies in practice. The Care Act 2014, Children Act 1989, fundamental to practice, and the overarching, of course, the Human Rights Act, which is absolutely fundamental to practice as it applies to all public bodies. So applying social work methods and models, so developing your own understanding, your own knowledge, looking at what works, looking at how that applies into practice, developing professional relationships, that's readiness for direct practice, so and looking and understanding the professional guidance, understanding the professional standards as published by Social Work England, the regulator for the social work, and looking at all the various aspects of guidance from the knowledge and skills statements, etc., and developing those professional relations in practice. And psychosocial perspectives of the life course, which looks at the human development across the lifespan, and so looking at those it's quite an academic first semester before going out into the second semester, which is into the first substantive placement. And that's the 70-day placement. It tends to be in a service user rich environment in the independent, voluntary and private sector. So we're looking at, for instance, it's like mental health hostels, day centres, children's centres, women's refuge, those kind of service user rich environments. And alongside of that placement, for 10 weeks within the placement, returning into the university for a day a week to look at professional practice with adults and professional practice with children and families as 2 units, so which mirrors the framework within which social services deliver their provision. So adult social care and children and families. So those 2 units look to mirror that. And the placements themselves are across the local area, but again we'll look at that in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. Into the second year, and semester 1 is the 100-day substantive placement. That's in undertaking statutory legal interventions, and to be the local authority social services team. We're very fortunate with the relations we have through the teaching partnership with our local authorities, who offer us a good range of placements. So that's where you'll be working alongside social workers, working in local authority teams, and we're looking to support our students' career trajectory, looking at what they're seeking to achieve in their outcome and along graduation. And that's dependent, obviously, to some extent on how the local authorities offer us the opportunities to place students. But it's absolutely it's a full-time 100-day substantive placement undertaking legal interventions. And at the end of that, when we go to semester 2, there is a choice. So students who have completed their programme up to that point can leave and take the PG Dip social work, and that's a social work qualifying programme which entitles students to apply for registration as a social worker, as a registered social worker with Social Work England, or to continue on the course and to complete for the Masters, undertaking one of 2 options, which is either the dissertation or both critical literature review and team working for service improvement, and that's the option to take on to complete the MA. So in terms of practice learning, as mandated for all courses, 2 contrasting service user groups. It doesn't have to be 1 adult, 1 children. It can be 2 different contexts in terms of children or adults, but 2 contrasting service user groups. And obviously legal interventions in the second semester at least. And it's our job, it's the university's job to find and quality ensure students and to match. We'll obviously take account of students' prior experience, particularly in the first placement, and that's if you like, to encourage people out of their comfort zone, because these are generic qualifying programs. They're not a social work qualifying for children or social work qualifying for adults, so these are transferable skills, and we're looking to encourage students down that path. Okay, so the final placement, so in the statutory setting, final placements up there are a wider range available to students with access to their own transport. There's a number of which are available for students who don't have their own transport, but with access to transport you have that opportunity to take on a wider offer, if you like. When the statutory teams are looking for students to do home visits, etc., then that's what they require transport. And most of our placements are organised through the local authorities who form part of the teaching partnerships. That's Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, Dorset and Wiltshire. Okay, so entry, we're looking at normally 2-1 or above, but not always, obviously, and an understanding of social sciences. And in terms of experience, because it's an academic qualification as well as a professional qualification, we place an equal value on potential to study as well as potential to practice, and then obviously previous study and previous practice. And we're looking for students to demonstrate their experience through their own life experience, through voluntary work, and through paid work. So a combination of any of those three. And we will look at health checks and DBS disclosures. So the process, completing a UCAS form, and then through that we then make a selection for interview and send an invitation. And when under normal circumstances, assessment days are on Saturdays, and that provides opportunities for candidates to meet current students, to meet current practitioners from within the local authorities. And then the actual interview process includes a group exercise, a written exercise, and an individual interview with a lecturer. Okay, so the things to consider about the MA bursary, the postgraduate bursary. So it's important to keep an eye on the Department of Health website. It relates to government funding, so this can change at any given time, year by year. And we allocate the bursaries by set criteria, which we make available to candidates. So you have to consider it's a full-time program. You have to consider the impact of study on family life. So be aware of that, and juggling the demands, which are both academic and professional, obviously, and obviously the preparation for the course in terms of introductory reading. We'll support that as well with guidance. And that's just a picture of the new building that our faculty has built on the Lansdowne campus. The bottom left-hand corner is the finished article. This my contact details. You are more than willing, as I write this in the unusual circumstances, as we're all in lockdown. That's my contact details, and you're more than willing to contact me directly, and we can arrange a conversation through a web link or phone or whatever we choose to do, but you'd be more than welcome.